Hey guys, and welcome. And today's project, as you see, we're working on another Millennium Falcon. The reason I'm doing another Millennium Falcon is I managed to get this on eBay for really cheap. However, it was missing a few parts. It was missing the turbo lasers on the top and bottom, the radar dish, and it was missing one of the back panels on the body, and this panel right here. And just to show you, I've already started working on this model. I'm in the process of scratch building this back panel. This has some little greeblies. I think I got the size pretty well. I'll be priming over that. You can see I've already did some light blocking. We're going to be lighting this model, and I'm just put this back engine in this area right here. I'm going to be using these strip lighting, and we have, it looks like these 12, two strips of 12 LEDs, and we have our wiring, and these will, just like the Snaptite Max I did not too long ago, this will line the bottom, and we'll have 2 rows of those, so we'll have 24 LEDs flashing out. So we're gonna have to cut into this little part right here with a rotary tool to make space for the wiring to fit in there. It is going to be in a flying configuration, so I'm closing off and light blocking the doors that was here. Now this one is a little bit different than my previous one. This is the similar to the Millennium Falcon seen in A New Hope. It only has spaces for 3 landing gears. It doesn't have the extra compartments for the 2 landing gears like my other model does. And again, we're leaving it closed up. The model had already came that way. Again, this was a model that someone started and then stopped, and I was able to get it really cheap. We're adding a little bit of detail on certain spots. You can see where I've kind of did a shot of primer in this section here. What I did is I cut away there's a full plastic section here, and I completely cut away and took some wire and bent it in shape so it would have a little bit better detail in that section there. I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm adding some wiring a couple different places just to give it a little bit better detail to it. I do plan on doing some instrument lighting with the cockpit. I have some colored fiber optic wire coming, and we'll do that, get more into that once that gets here, and we'll do some instrument lighting. On my previous one, I just put a small SMD over top and kind of lit the whole cockpit. This time I'm going to go for the instrument lighting. The cockpit over here, I put some liquid latex over it, so once it's attached and we start painting the whole thing, all you have to do is peel that off. So that's been drying for about a day, and that will protect our cockpit glass once we start painting the whole thing. And up front, we're going to do some red lights, headlights. This is the very front of the ship. I've seen both red and white, and depending on, and actually changing colors. So this will be a little bit different. This is going to actually be a little bit more accurate than my previous one. I think my previous one, I put the light dead center, and when I took a closer look at the actual model, it does lean toward the inside. So we'll have some little LEDs behind this red piece of sprue, and it'll give us a red driving light effect. So that's what we have going on. It is going to be in a flying configuration. I bought this base. This is a protector stand, and the plan is to have this attachment point kind of glued in, drilled out and glued in here, nice and sturdy, and then that way we can connect the Falcon when we want to, and it'll also give us the ability to swivel it around in whatever position we want. So, but we'll work more on that later. That's where we're headed with it, and I'm just working on small details now, working on the lighting, engine lighting, and we'll just keep going. All right, I've attached our mounting point. First put some super glue and just connected in there nice and firm, and then I did some 2-part epoxy, just mix up a little batch and spread it around without getting any in the center where the threads are at. So hopefully that'll give us a nice firm connecting point for our model. Alright, so I'm just working on the bottom section of the Millennium Falcon here, and I've attached it to my base now, and just attached the base to a piece of wood that I put some textured spray paint on, just to give it a look. And I may paint it, right now it's a brown color, I may paint it black or gray or something to that effect, but for now I don't think it looks too bad. But you can see how it attaches on to our model here, and it's good and firm. We use a two-part epoxy to do this connecting part on here, and that is very well attached now. I think you pretty much have to break the model apart to get that off. So I like that, and of course it is adjustable, and it's on a little ball mount, so we can just loosen the tension of it, and we can change the model to all different kinds of angles. So I like that part of it. I went ahead and glued in these side pieces right here, and just working in, make sure I have a good fit and alleviating and taking care of any gaps that I may have. So this part's about ready for priming. I'm about ready to start priming over the top part of the model. Again, we've added in a little bit of detail inside the little cavities here, and other than that, I think that's pretty good to go. So just going to work on getting this done and primed, and probably start adding in the initial base coat. Alright, so I finished working, well, not finished so much, but just working on the cockpit of the Falcon. You can see I got a lot of fiber optics coming up through there, and simply just drill some holes through the back section, and also have a few up here in the control section of the cockpit. I've also got my hand and chewy glued into place. See if I can get that in the focus for you. And then they'll all come back. Now, if you can tell, I've painted the tips with some transparent paint, with some greens and reds and whatnot, and also I painted the very front tips. So what they'll do is they'll be bundled together, and just working on how they'll be lit. And I just have some 5mm LEDs in here, and this is just a white light, and then these will be inside the Falcon. And then once I assemble it all, I'll simply just load into this tube like this, and then we'll have our lighting. So just to give a little extra effect. Obviously it's not accurate to what the real Falcon looks like, but I think it has a nice little detail to it. And it's a small size, so it's hard to get a lot of little lights in there. And then we'll do that, and then we'll have some more for there. So I'm about to seal over and attach the front part. I have my latex in there to protect the clear parts when we go to prime over it and paint it. And we're going to glue this into position right here, and we'll have to try, it's kind of rough right here, we may have to try to work out that seam in there. And I have the top part of the main section, as you can see, I've primed over it, and I'm pretty happy with the added details, the little wires that I replaced in here, and I've added just a number of them in certain places in various areas that you can see. If you can make out the little wires that have been added into position, just to give a little bit more realistic detail. Now I've attached the cockpit, and that also has or not the cockpit, but the gunner's window, and added in some latex to that. So again, we're going to paint over that again, and we'll just have to peel that off. Now the plan for the gunner section is I've surrounded it with some styrene plastic, and as you can see, I'm going to have some fiber optics. So we'll have some lighting in there. The plan is to cover it up and have it dark. So when you do look in there, you won't be able to see detail, but you will be able to see some of the lighting. So I think that'll add a nice little effect. Alright, so here I am. I'm working on an engine grille to go across. The kit comes with this plastic part here. Now it originally had a blue coating which was pretty light blocking, so I sanded all that off and leaves you with a clear piece, and I put a light coat of white paint with a little bit of blue to kind of hopefully give it some texture when it lights up. But it's pretty plain, and we need to make an engine grille. So what I'm using is I'm taking some styrene, and I have some 0.06 and some 0.04 styro square styrene, and I measured out, I just simply took a piece of the thicker styrene, the 0.06, and kind of just figured out how long I was going to need, which worked out, as you can see here, I'm already started on it. It worked out to about 20 centimeters. So I figured out the width of it, and then I took with the smaller 0.04 styrene, I figured out what was the right distance, and I have a chopper here which comes in real useful. And once you set the block, then you can just cut consistent pieces. So what I'm doing now is I'm filling in. I've already glued in some parts, and you can see where I've taped it down to keep it from moving. And I'm just going every centimeter. I'm going to be, since it's exactly 20 centimeters long, then it kind of works out, and we'll just attach our little dividers every centimeter apart, so it gives us a nice balanced look. And we'll see how that turns out and see if we need to add more once we get done. So I'm just in the process of gluing that, and the best way that I found is just using some extra thin cement, gluing the spots, taking the styrene, putting it in there. It gives you a little bit of time to attach it without drying too fast. It gives you time to kind of place it nice and square on there. So I'm going to work on finishing all that, and we'll take a look once we get done. Alright, so I'm getting close to sealing up my Millennium Falcon, putting the top on the bottom here. Before I do that, just kind of want to show you what I've done with the lighting. Now lighting, I'm no expert at it by any means, but we can get some nice effects with some pretty simple means here. And just starting off, of course I have my back strip lighting here. There's 2 rows of strip lighting. I believe there's 24 LEDs all together that run through here, and then they exit out through here. I've attached these wires. Right here we have our connector that is a plug where I can just plug it in when I want it lit, and otherwise I don't have to have wires or cables coming through there. And so on the back side there's just the receiver for that. So that's our power plug coming out, main wires, and they're all connecting to the main wires here. As you can see, we have some fiber optics running out the side. They're going to be on each side. I got 4 little fiber optics, so we'll have some little red lights coming off the sides there. And those fiber optics run through here. You see they're kind of taped down and run into here where we have a red LED inside a small tube to where we can put our fiber optics in there. And then we have in the front, our mandible lighting. See if I can get that in the picture. And all that is we have some red sprue that I had from my old model kit, some clear red sprue, and I have it sticking out a little bit further than it needs to be right now, because when I paint over it, I'm just going to paint over all of it, and then I'll come back and trim that off, and we'll have our piece exposed. But there's a white 3mm LED right here, and I just took some shrink tubing, I butted it up against the red sprue, and then closed the shrink tubing to hold it in place. And then I super glued the shrink tubing to make sure it didn't slide off the red sprue, and then I put a little hot glue in there to get it all in place. And then of course you can see those wires also come down. They all join together into a blue connecting wire, trying to limit a whole bunch of wires connecting at one spot. We also have a little dome here, and I believe that was just some type of cap I had, a little black cap. I've cut a little hole, put a little red sprue in there again, put a little red light over it. So we'll have some red light coming out of the gunner's port. This is a nice little effect. It won't be seen too much. I didn't worry too much about that. So that is the bottom part of the lighting. And let me move this out of the way. And here we have the top part. And you can see we have all of our fiber optics running out of the cockpit. We have 2 batches. One's for the instrument panel and one's for the back wall, all the lights there. And those are running into 2 separate lights, and those are just white LEDs. And we've hot glued the you can see they're just connected into a little metal pipe and hot glued into place. Again, I made a little place for the gunner's window, and there's going to be the same thing, a little red sprue that's getting a little red light, not overpowering, but when you'll have a little red light coming out of there. And then again, they've all connected into this one wire to when I attach the top to the bottom. All I have to connect is this, and I put a little black tape there to make sure I know which is my negative wire. There is some black writing, but it's kind of hard to tell. So I always test everything before I attach it completely. You make sure you run all your lighting, and make sure all your wires connected properly, everything's lighting up, because once you seal it, it becomes much harder. So that's going to just go on top of the bottom. We'll attach all the wires, and it'll fit right across there. And once we get it sealed up, we'll initiate. We have to of course do our base coat over this. So I'm just going to work on getting it all sealed up. Once we get it sealed up, there's probably going to be some gaps and issues that are going to have to be addressed. But for now, that's where we're at. All right, as you can see, I have it now all together, and I've applied my base coat using that canvas white from Rust-Oleum and got it sealed over. We still have on our masking for our cockpit and over our gunner's base, but we got it all sealed up. I addressed a few little areas where it wasn't coming together very well. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the color and stuff. As you can see, I've also started doing some of the detail painting on there, and just using some grays, flat red. This is actually kind of a light brown color, yellowish brown that I've used over here. And just did a couple different grays on there. And so we're just working on the detail painting and going off some pictures that I've found, trying to get as close as I can. Now this model is not extremely accurate to the 5-foot studio model using the New Hope. So just kind of have to do the best, take some liberties here and there, but overall I think it'll be a good representation of the Millennium Falcon. So the next step that I'm going to do is do some chipping effects on some of this paint. And how I'm going to do that is I'm going to take my can of Rust-Oleum and spray it onto a hard surface to where I have a little puddle, and I got this little foamy material. I'll tear me off a piece, dip it into the foam or into the paint, kind of get most of it off, and then I'll just touch up. Instead of trying to do an actual physical chipping of the paint, that'll give us a what will look the effect of chipping that we'll do. And we'll kind of, looking at the scale model, there's quite a bit of chipping that goes on with the painted areas. So that's the next step that I'm going to do on this. All right, I've sprayed a little bit of paint in here for my canvas white, and I'm just dabbing a little bit, getting most of it off. And I usually try to start off this on the edges so I don't get, and make sure you rotate around. You don't want to get the same pattern going in the same places. Let's see if I can get that in there. And then I'll start getting our worn effect on our different paint areas. So that's the technique. Let's see if I can get that in there. I'm just chipping up our paint, and I'm going to go across and do that across the model. All right, so now I'm working on, I did my chipping effects across the model, and just working on doing some weathering. And what I'm doing is a wash right now. And for my wash is just some stuff I make. I'm just using some acrylic paint, and this is just like a light gray craft paint, acrylic craft paint. And I just mix it up with a little bit of a window cleaner, and this is obviously a $1 window cleaner. And mix that up in a bowl, and so it's a very watery type substance. And you can see right here I've already kind of did one pass on this section, getting it into all the crevices and cracks and crannies. It's going to kind of dirty it up and start bringing out some of the detail, and kind of see the difference between the two halves where I've put it. And I simply just kind of brush it on, and just a light coat, making sure it's getting into all these little seam lines and different things, crevices. Let it sit for a little bit, and I'll just wipe it off, and I'll wipe off the extra. It's good to have some Q-tips to get into some of the like some of these inset areas to get excess amounts out. But we'll let that just dry for a little bit, enough to where it dries in our seams, and I'll wipe that all off. And then if I need to do another pass, then I can always do another coat. And before I start doing this, I am sorry, I failed to mention, I put on a clear coat to protect all of the paint that I've already put on. And I don't know if it's showing right now, but I've also put in a bunch of little tiny decals here and there in different places. If you look at studio model, there's all kind of little warning decals and different things all throughout the model, if you look really closely. So I did some of those throughout the model, but then again I did a clear coat over it, either a gloss or a satin. It tends to work fine to protect all the stuff we've already done prior to putting on this wash. So I'm going to work on this, and then we'll come back. All right, so I've finished doing my gray wash on the top and bottom. As you can see, we're now working on the bottom, and I moved on to doing the watermarks or dirt marks that run along the pretty much the whole body of the Millennium Falcon. These little light marks that look like dirt and stuff is when it rains or gets wet, and it kind of runs down. Now for the bottom, they start from the outside, move in, because of, you have to kind of think it's concave and gravity would pull it inward. So you have to, on the top it's going to be the opposite. We're going to start from the middle and work our way out. But from the bottom we work from the outside and work toward just the way, so we have a natural effect on that. And how I'm doing this is a lot of ways of doing it. I've seen many people use airbrushes, oil paints. I'm going to actually be using dry pastels, and they come in lots of colors. I have lots of blacks and whites and stuff, but I also have different colors of orange and yellows and things of that nature. And what you do is just have a little board, and this is just some sandpaper on here, and you just grind it up until it becomes a fine dust. And as here you can see, I have a mixture of different grays and blacks and stuff. I also have some different orange and yellows to do like rust effects. And I've just got an old worn down paintbrush and just kind of move it in here. Now to get a nice straight line, what I do is just take a little masking tape, and as you can see, I've already worked on this side, and we're moving on to this quarter panel here. And I follow, and fortunately we have some nice lines that go the direction. I just use that to kind of go by. I'm going to keep it parallel with those lines. And from here we're just going to run it in this section right here. See if I can get this so you can see it. And I'm just going to start up on the top edge again. We're running down toward the middle to follow, like if when it's turned upside down, the way the water would flow. And I start off by just making a kind of a nice bigger spot, and then I'm just going to start brushing along the edge of the tape, and then kind of letting off as I get toward the next line. And it doesn't look too dark there, but then when we move our tape, we get a nice little clean line that looks straight, and it's a nice effect. And then I'll just reapply the tape and do it in different areas. There's quite a bit. As you can see right here, I did mostly with some light, and I kind of try to change up, but for the most part it's going to be kind of that grayish color. But there is some rust ones I did also. And now the thing about this, it will wipe off at this point. This part I did, and then I added in a clear dull coat, so now it won't rub off. It's on there and part of the model. So I'm going to work on that on the entire circumference of both sides. Alright, so here we are with our finished Falcon build, our inexpensive Millennium Falcon project. And overall, I'm very happy with it. Just going to finish up what we did on it. Of course, we did dry pastels to do all the like water lines, the dirt marks running down, but I also used dry pastels in some of the crevices to kind of darken it up. Added in some different colors, some rust colors, the different areas. And you can see I did a little bit more panel shading. I did some light grays on a couple of the panels, just kind of give a little bit more contrast, and added in some rust effects throughout the ship. Things that I did add to the model at a little bit more of expense. Ordered some guns from Shapeways. They make 3D printed parts, and so I have that on the top and bottom. I have some far more detail. Now this kit, as you recall, I said this was purchased used and was not, it didn't include the guns. The guns that come with the kit are not good anyway. They're very poor in detail. The model was missing a radar dish, and so the dish is from Shapeways. Now I did build the bracket that holds the dish, or build a bracket that holds the dish, and of course that still moves around. And we painted it up and finished it up with some matte coats and a matte varnish from Vallejo. This is my final coat that I put on it. And let's just plug it up. Right now it's have a temporary just battery hooking up to it. And as you can see, the engine's on. Now the bracket is adjustable. It's on that ball joint, so I'm going to tilt it so we can kind of see the engine lighting. Thought that turned out really well. No major light leaks. We have some lighting into the doorways. There's some fiber optics. And there is some lighting inside the cockpit. And see if we can get you in there and view that. We have some different color LEDs. Or I'm sorry, fiber optics. There are two LEDs. They're white, but the fiber optics themselves have been painted to give us those color effects. And up front we have our red driving lights. And then we have some red LEDs inside the gunner's base. I don't know if that's showing very well, but that's just a nice little detail. And so overall, not much money spent on this project. Less than the, if you were to buy one of these brand new, I spent less than the total amount of that. So for less than probably somewhere around $45, not including paint and stuff, is, like I said, most of this stuff I already had, the different colors. I really didn't spend any more. The base coat was a canvas white from Rust-Oleum. I thought that turned out pretty well. A lot of times, most people recommend Insignia white from Tamiya is a good base color. But if you're looking for something a little cheaper, the canvas white is a pretty good match. Maybe a little bit darker than the Tamiya. But overall, I think it turned into a very nice display piece. So I hope you enjoyed the build, and until next time, everybody have a good one.